Japanese Imperial Army sexually enslaved an estimated 200,000 women during the war. They were taken from the Philippines, Korea, and China, among other nations. Critics have repeatedly blasted the Prime Minister's handling of Japan's wartime history, straining relations in the region. He made reference to past apologies, but he didn't offer a new one. Why would anyone have been expecting that? Why wouldn't he have just flatly apologized one more time?
One of Japan's biggest newspapers is in hot water over misreporting of the testimony. The paper is retracting its article. Of Japan's biggest newspapers is in hot water over misreporting of the testimony. The paper is retracting its article. Last month, the newspaper retracted stories it ran on the so-called comfort women issue, saying they were based on a false account. It reported accounts given by a man in the 1980s and 1990s. He said he'd forcibly gathered women on the Korean island of Jeju during World War II and sent them to work in brothels. The paper said it interviewed about 40 people on the island in April and May to confirm his story, but could not find any evidence to support it. The president said he'll set up a panel of outside experts to study the case and its international implications.
The report was submitted to Asahi President Masataka Watanabe.
I once again extend my sincere apologies for causing a lot of trouble over the series of Asahi reports on those referred to as comfort women.
In August, the Asahi retracted past articles which were based on accounts by Seiji Yoshida. In those articles, Yoshida testified he had taken Korean women away against their will to serve Japanese soldiers. A researcher published findings in 1992 that Yoshida's testimony was very dubious, but the paper continued to carry his accounts in articles. The panel pointed out that the Asahi remained passive, failing to send reporters to confirm the findings. It says the Asahi betrayed the trust of its readers, and its actions should be criticized for violating journalistic ethics. The panel also questioned the Asahi's decision not to apologize to readers when retracting its reports. It said the paper failed in its role as a media organization and was irresponsible toward its readers.
I'll take what the panel says in the report seriously.
Japanese Imperial Army sexually enslaved an estimated 200,000 women during the war. They were taken from the Philippines, Korea, and China, among other nations. Critics have repeatedly blasted the Prime Minister's handling of Japan's wartime history, straining relations in the region. He made reference to past apologies, but he didn't offer a new one. Why would anyone have been expecting that? Why wouldn't he have just flatly apologized one more time?
Well, here's the question, here's the challenge inside Japan about this question of apology. I think the Japanese people feel that their government has apologized a lot. There have been repeated statements on the 10th anniversary, starting with Mr. Murayama, the Prime Minister, for the 50th anniversary in 1995, then again 10 years later, the Prime Minister Koizumi, and now Mr. Abe. But the regional relationships that Japan has with South Korea and China in particular are not improving. And I think many Japanese feel that 70 years after the war, 2 or 3 generations of Japanese later, they worry that this apology diplomacy is really undermining Japan's geopolitical status. On the other hand, though, you still have some unresolved issues. And very clearly in your opening piece, you saw the comfort women or the issue of sexual slavery in Asia. And the Japanese and South Koreans in particular are having a very hard time coming to terms with how to embrace and how to reach out to these women who are still alive.
And yet the Prime Minister speaks about them with euphemisms, which is still hard for me to understand.
Well, the word comfort women is not a very comfortable one for anybody other than those who want to go back into the documents of the middle of the 20th century. This is, in today's language, was a systemic coercion of women for the military brothels of the Imperial Army. It was what we call today human trafficking. And I think that's a language that you're starting to see the Japanese government embrace. It's a 21st century language for this phenomenon.
Now, in remarks that will almost certainly inflame tensions with Korea, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has criticized an American school textbook that describes some of Japan's wartime atrocities. The New York Times reports that Abe told Parliament that he wants to fight what he calls mistaken views abroad concerning Japan's wartime actions when the Japanese military brutally conquered large parts of Asia. Abe said he objected to a textbook published by McGraw-Hill Education that says women were forced to work in Japanese military brothels during the war. Now, McGraw-Hill continues to defend its textbook entitled Traditions and Encounters, A Global Perspective on the Past, and says the writing, research and presentation of its account is supported by historical facts. The book tells how the Imperial Japanese Army forcibly recruited and conscripted as many as 200,000 women, many of them Korean, to serve Japanese troops before and during the Second World War.